Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the May 7th, 2026 meeting of the South Haven City Planning Commission. I am going to call this meeting to order and ask Samantha, please, to read the roll.
Michael Campbell.
Here.
Paul Fenton.
Here.
Clark Gruber.
Here.
Larry Heinig.
Here.
Mary Hasley.
Here.
George Sleeper.
Here.
Tim Stegman. Janice Varney.
Here.
Bob Sherman.
Here.
I would make a motion to excuse Stegman. He did give us a heads up with a reason for not being here.
Support.
Moved and supported to excuse Commissioner Stegman. All in favor say yes.
Yes.
Opposed? He is excused. Thank you. We have an agenda, thanks to Kelly and staff. Is there a motion to approve the agenda as submitted?
I make a motion to approve the agenda.
Second?
It's been moved and supported to approve the agenda as submitted. All in favor say yes.
Yes.
Opposed, no. It is approved. And the meeting minutes from the April 29th regular meeting are also part of the packet. Is there a motion to approve the minutes from April 9?
I move to approve the minutes of Thursday, April 9, 2026.
Support.
Thank you. Moved and supported to approve the minutes as submitted. All in favor say yes.
Yes.
Opposed? The minutes are approved. Item 4, public comments. Citizens may address the Planning Commission regarding items on the agenda for which there is no public hearing scheduled. We have 3 items on the agenda tonight, and all 3 of them, each of them, has a public hearing associated. So please, if you're here to make a comment about any of those, wait for the appropriate item, and your voice will be heard. Item 5, unfinished business, 120 Baseline Road, a zoning map amendment, a request for a zoning map amendment. We have a public hearing associated, and Kelly will give us the highlights.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. As I'm sure you all remember, this item is a request for a map amendment to change the zoning of 120 Baseline and 201 Webster from RM1 and R1B, which are multiple and single-family residential districts, to MHC, Manufactured Housing Community, a district that is specifically designed for manufactured housing communities. As you're also aware, this application initially came to us as a straight rezoning request, but has become a conditional rezoning request where the applicant has voluntarily offered conditions that would be associated with the rezoning. This arose at the last meeting at which the applicants were present, and the subsequent offer was made in writing. And I can read the 8 conditions aloud if you would like, or I can simply say that they are in the packet. How would you like me to handle that?
I'm fine to simply say they are part of the agenda packet. We'll talk probably about some of them as we move along, but I don't think it's necessary to read them all now.
Okay, that's fine. So I would also note that while the applicant appears to be committed to developing the property as a manufactured housing community under the proposed conditional rezoning, it is possible that the property could be used for any of the uses permitted by right or by special land use after special land use approval in the MHC district. These uses are listed on page 11 of your packet. And I would say the other uses allowed in the MHC district are also currently allowed in the RM1 and R1B districts. So these would not be new uses if the conditional rezoning were to be approved. That said, the conditional offer is not tied to the site plan, and it does not commit to a single manufactured community on the site, which is recommended for single-family housing in the city's master plan. And this has led to some concern about the potential for a land division and the potential for development of a manufactured housing community in addition to something else, which could increase the density of the site and result in development possibly that's not consistent with the master plan or the character of the surrounding neighborhood. So that is in part the reason for the resolution that you all have in your packet this evening. And at this point, I would turn it over to Nathan or to Brad to see if either of you has anything that you would like to add.
Chairman, before we proceed,
Please.
the conflict of interest, as we had discussed at the last meeting, both you and I, don't mean to interrupt, but I think this should be put on the record sooner
That's fine.
than later. And I didn't want to interrupt your flow. Chairman and I had discussed earlier, just like at the previous meeting, he has a conflict, I have a conflict. We would remain seated but conflicted out, take no vote, and remain basically motionless, so.
Exactly, and Commissioner Hosley is conflicted on this matter as the matter involving 120 Baseline Road, because her property abuts that property. And later in the evening, agenda item number 6 involves property on 225 North Shore Drive, and my home is within the 300 notice distance there. So when we get to that agenda, I will be in conflict, and I will step aside, and Commissioner Heinig will take care of that item. So we'll deal with those. Mr. Inks, did you have some?
Just one clarification. I said motionless, I mean emotional, no show.
Of course.
I do take notes of who is speaking when in case I want to look at the video later, but it's just names and
Right,
time and date.
understand.
And I won't cover that later, because that was be my comments later, that, you could scratch your nose, you might lean back, there's some motion, but thank you.
Absolutely. So, Mr. Inks, did you have some value to add? I'm sure you do.
Yes, so as Ms. Getman Dissett indicated, there are 8 conditions that the applicant has offered. I would note, I'm not going to go through all of them, but one significant one, if the property is developed as a manufactured housing community, it would be limited to no more than 24 manufactured housing units on the entire property. And then most of the other conditions relate to certain design standards for either those units or the site overall. All of these conditions have been placed into a conditional rezoning agreement, which is required by the zoning ordinance. That's a legal document that would be recorded if the city ultimately moves forward with this. Those conditions would be binding on the property owner now and forever. So if the property is sold or transferred in any way, those conditions would always remain on the property. If a future property owner wanted to do something different, they would not be able to without coming back to the city seeking a modification, and that would basically be going through the same process that we're going through now. It would require another conditional rezoning to amend those conditions. I think there has been potentially some confusion among members of the public about how that would work. So just want to clarify that these are, again, permanent conditions. These are not temporary conditions, and any future property owners would be subject to these conditions. There are provisions in the conditional rezoning agreement that provide some protections to the city. There are different options that the city can pursue if there was a violation of the agreement. One option would be specific performance, so the city could go to court and essentially say, this is the contract that we have entered into with the property owner. The property owner is not following that agreement, so we want you to make them follow it. The city could also seek an injunction, or one of the other provisions is what is contemplated in the zoning ordinance and the Zoning Enabling Act, and that would be the city could seek to revert the property to the type of zoning district that it currently is. So if a future property owner came in and wasn't adhering to those conditions, the city could seek to return the property back to RM1 instead of manufactured housing community. It's my understanding that the conditional rezoning agreement is acceptable to the applicant. I would leave that to the applicant or their attorney to confirm that when they speak, but that is my understanding after speaking with counsel for the applicant earlier today. Any planning commissioners have any questions about the conditional rezoning process or the conditional rezoning agreement? I'm happy to answer them either now or later on in the meeting.
I don't have any questions, but I appreciate the confirmation, because certainly some folks have been concerned what would happen if this went forward and was approved and sometime in the future the property ownership changed hands. But clearly the conditions agreed upon in order to secure the rezoning will apply to any future owners. Any future owners seeking to change those would have to consider another rezoning or some other process to change those. So important for everybody to understand that, I think. Anyone else with questions, comments for Mr. Rinks? All right then. Brad, did you want to add any comments or background?
I just want to reiterate that when the Planning Commission does review this tonight in deliberation, that they do go through all 5 of the zoning ordinance standards thoroughly to make it very clear how everybody is feeling on those. And I also did include 9 other points of consideration after those for you to think about as well.
Right, and those are all in the agenda packet. And the conditions that Brad's referring to are clearly stated in the South Haven zoning ordinance. Actually, I think it's, I thought I had the page number, but it's Article 25. There are 5 conditions that shall be considered, not optionally, shall be considered in considering a map amendment, in other words, a rezoning. So yes, indeed, we'll consider all of those. Kelly, the applicant is here, and someone would like to speak on behalf of the applicant. Is that correct? Is it David?
Good evening, again.
Good evening.
Basically, what I'd like to do is just kind of start right from the beginning again and just briefly take us through a little bit about Mr. Rothner and the project itself and the order in which things transpired and evolved and where we're at today and our thoughts with it. Mr. Rothner is a long-term owner here in South Haven, resident in South Haven. He's been coming to South Haven since the 1940s. He's a well-respected businessman in Chicago, in Illinois, well, a lot of parts of the nation. Member of the Jewish community. He aids in many of the humanitarian causes. He is a person that he likes things done in a quality way. For instance, his home here on the lake, he had Cottage Home Builders do it, premier builder in the area. He was a former owner of a Frank Lloyd Wright home in Illinois, renovated that, turned it over to a foundation, and he, with all that, he still clings to and has fond memories of his South Haven experience. So that's where this whole thing is, like, that's the catalyst for all of this. And he looked at this piece of property. He wanted to bring friends and acquaintances that have the same religious views as himself and practices, and wanted them to come to South Haven and experience South Haven the same way he has. And for instance, you say, well, there's a lot of area in the community. You know, why is he wanting to build in that particular piece of property in South Haven? Why the city? Well, one of the reasons is the beliefs disallow any vehicle use on the Sabbath. Well, he had his memories of South Haven, and what this location could provide is a walking distance for the residents, the homeowners, to walk to the First Hebrew Congregation Synagogue and participate in services during the Sabbath. Now, the property came up. It had laid vacant for quite a while. It was in rundown, poor condition when he looked at purchasing it. And after checking the local ordinances, he decided to make that purchase. And when he did his background check here on the property and on the ordinance, that manufactured housing communities were allowed as a special use in that zone. So he basically moved ahead with the purchase of the project and the project in itself down that path as manufactured home community. Why did he choose a manufactured home community? Number of reasons. It's a proven path. It's been used in other areas, and it gives the owner a flexibility, gives a simplicity of design, and allows to bring in factory-built homes. And factory-built homes, we all know, are something that's needed today because we have terrible labor shortages. We still are enduring material shortages on a lot of different materials. It gives us the efficiency to build in an enclosed environment, the speeds. And while homes are being built, other work can be done on the property in itself. So there's numerous reasons why that path was chosen. He went on to commission engineering, design, and working drawings. And unlike a lot of, quote, developers that'll come in and look at a piece of property and propose a project, his instructions to them and what they did were actually to prepare drawings in whole, meaning they did all the engineering for the infrastructure, they designed it, they put it into place. They just didn't give a nice rendering or just an overview of a site plan that looked good to the public. He actually did the work to make this a working, viable project on those drawings. He engaged an architectural firm to help him design the houses that would be brought here, the dwellings, and it was basically, these are single-family homes. There's no getting around it. They're detached single-family homes. These are designed in a bungalow style, which is basically a nod to the past in South Haven. I believe it's 749 North Shore Drive. That was still is a community of numerous homes, and they started out as bungalows, and some still remain that way today. So it's very common for the neighborhood with that type of home. It blends in well, and it serves a purpose. Now, we are talking about infrastructure. Infrastructure was all designed, water, sewer, was all designed based on the SHAWA's standards, the South Haven Area Water Sewer Authority. So it's designed like any other project. It meets all the requirements of the project. All the capacities are there. Everything is put into place. Stormwater is designed so that is held on the site. It's retained on the site. It's dispersed in the ground. And if we should get an abnormal heavy rain or whatever where they cannot take it and move it into the ground at a slow fashion, then we have metered overflows that would allow it to go into the drainage system in that area that drains Baseline Road and a number of other properties, Webster Avenue and so on and so forth. So, he put all these things into play. Now, we begin the demolition. You've got a terribly dilapidated, dangerous, obsolete building that had been broken into many times. Drug users had inhabited it, and so we need to get it off the project. So we pulled all the permits and so on and moved ahead with the demolition and of those buildings and some of the site structure. Now we're turning to 2025. With the completion of the building demolition, site demolition, it starts to proceed to the construction and permitting. Well, then it was discovered that the manufactured housing community special use was removed from the ordinance, which brought us to the original request for rezoning, rezoning from multifamily. During that meeting, I proposed a condition that addressed the public's concern. And it's a large one. It's a hot button topic today in South Haven, and that's STRs. We also listened to a lot of the other concerns of the people that came forward. And so in having the opportunity, we put these additional conditions down and submitted them. The first one, and I'm just going to be brief and not read them all in entirety. There was concerns about no control in the amount of units on the property. We were limiting the units to 24 total homes on that property, single-family dwellings. Each of them should have a minimum of 2,000 square feet. They will also, number 3 is they will have attached covered porches. Number 4, permanent foundations, below frost foundations. The units themselves will be positioned with an elevation to blend in and around with the existing terrain. 5, fencing, landscaping, all covered. We've left it open for numerous types of, we've heard things back and forth. Some people don't like complete the block fence, some like ornamental. So we're going to basically play it by ear and see what works best for the community. And coupled, if you go with ornamental fencing that has a lot of volume that's open, of course we're going to back it up with plantings, landscaping, and so on. And that's all in those conditions. Next thing is the other buildings on site. There's going to be accessory buildings. And when I say accessory buildings, I don't mean sheds. I mean pool houses and maintenance buildings and so on. Those are all going to be site-built homes. They're all, site-built buildings built to all the International Building Michigan codes. So that's no issues there. So that's included in that. Number 7, vehicle, limited vehicle access. There was concerns about traffic, the number of vehicles on Webster. So the condition that we looked at was to all the homeowners and guests will use access on Baseline Road. And it will be gated access, so it's not going to be a lot of fast-moving traffic going on and off the road. But that traffic will go out those gates. Now we have an access on Webster Street. What is that going to be used for? That's going to be used for the owners if they want to walk the town, foot traffic, golf cart traffic. Golf cart. And bicycle, and in addition to that, there'll be some service vehicles. With a community like this, it's going to take some maintenance people and service people, and they will use that access only. So there's not going to be any more additional movement through that piece of property or through that access than there had been with the nursing home instead. And number 8, the big one, no short-term rentals. Absolutely not. This is a community that is going to be dedicated to the homeowners themselves, and it's not going to be set out there for profit or anything of that nature. This is a legacy project for Mr. Rothner. This is something that he's dreamed about. He has numerous projects internationally and in the States, but this is something that's very close to his heart. And he's not doing it for profit. He's doing it to bring people to South Haven, to experience South Haven. He's bringing these people to enjoy everything he has, to utilize. He's really a significant part of the First Hebrew congregation. And he wants to see that continue for many, many, many more generations than what it already has. And to have a living environment with people, with their children and their children's children. So those are the things he's looking at. He's not looking at it as somebody that's coming in from wherever, throwing some things together and then moving on to the next one. This is his neighborhood. This is his town. This is where he lives. This is where he owns the numerous other properties. He's not going anywhere. He has known reputation for having quality items. And this is pretty much the upshot of what this project is. It all conforms to the master plan. They're all single-family detached homes. It's just a different type of construction and different type of home than you normally find as compared to site-built. But they're still single-family homes and allowed. Let me just take a second here and talk a little bit about some pending legislation. Kristen Grant, representative from the Grand Rapids area, has sponsored and has bipartisan support for a House bill that is kind of grinding its way through the legal halls. It's House Bill 5582. 5582, Section 205B states the zoning ordinance must not do, and the one particular item that we're most concerned about is subsection B, exclude from any residential zone a mobile/manufactured home as defined in Section 2 of the Mobile Home Commission Act of 1987. So this is what's coming, people. And it's an inevitability. They're building homes out of 3D concrete. They're building homes out of numerous other things. And to bring costs down, to bring workmen, the necessary workforce together, there's numerous factory-built units. You would probably be surprised how many modular homes are in South Haven and in that area. I know because I was the builder and put up a number of them. So it's nothing new by any stretch of the imagination. The only thing different is that we're using the mobile home, the mobile home park plan as a way to get it done.
Okay, thank you very much. Much of that I think we've all heard before. I see you have Attorney Palacios with you. Did you want to add any, please?
Thank you. I'll be brief. I just wanted to take a minute to touch upon the standards for rezoning that your city attorney and your planner have recommended that the commission focus on this evening as part of their discussion. The first standard that is in section 2503.3 is one that has you looking at your master plan. And I understand that the city is still working on some of the finer details of completing its master plan. At least that's what I took from last month's meeting minutes. But I think at bottom, the 2018 master plan and the 2025 master plan both recommend single-family residential use for this property. And as the planning consultant pointed out in his report, where you look to understand what single-family residential use means for purposes of planning and zoning in the city of South Haven is you look at what the zoning ordinance says a single-family residential unit or detached residential unit is. And that definition in the zoning ordinance doesn't differentiate between homes that are stick-built or homes that are manufactured and then brought into the site and then installed on a permanent foundation. And it's our belief that under your master plan designation, there really isn't a basis for distinguishing between a manufactured home and a stick-built home in terms of determining compliance with the master plan. In terms of the proposed rezoning being consistent with recent development trends in the area, it's an interesting question. If you look at a map of the land that's bounded by North Shore Drive, Baseline, and Webster, you see really what was a very established land use pattern for a very long period of time. There's the residential lots along Webster, there's the residential development along Northline, there's the development along Baseline, and then in the interior of that landmass was the convalescent home, which is no longer there. And so there is where we see a land use shift happening that we need to think through what is the trend in the community that would inform a zoning decision around how this property would be reused in the future. And I guess what we would draw your attention to is our conditional rezoning is limited to 24 units. If somehow the construction crew gets out there and begins going at it and discovers that there's some piece of the property unexpectedly unavailable or unsuitable for placement of manufactured structure, we're then down to 23. And so 24 is the absolute maximum that would ever be put on this site. If you look at the homes that ring the site, right now there are 16 single-family detached dwellings. This project is proposing 24. If you look at the lotting pattern on Webster, you see just over 20 single-family lots along Webster. So the proposal for the interior of the block with 24 is not that far above the existing sort of pattern of residential lotting within the area. We would further point out that the Maple Glen Apartments have 88 units, and they're immediately to the north of this property. So this is definitely a much less dense development than the property that buffers to the north. In terms of development trends in the city, I think that the city has continued to be interested in seeing a variety of housing styles developed within its borders. And residential development certainly is a trend and a market interest within South Haven because of its attractiveness. Another trend in South Haven has been short-term rentals. And what this project offers is a guarantee that there will not be short-term rentals within these 24 units, because that's a component of the conditional rezoning. So what's kind of unique about this rezoning is it gives an opportunity for a residential trend to be recognized and acknowledged, which is residential development of a permanent character that doesn't involve short-term rentals. And so we do believe that this rezoning fits with development trends in the community. And especially, I think we would point to the Harbor Club development, which is right there on Baseline Road, just to the east, that was developed by Allen Edwin Homes. I think they have 77 home sites there with, I counted probably in excess of 24, which are clustered right there at Baseline Road. So again, I think in terms of looking at development, particularly residential trends within this area of the city where this property is located, this proposal is consistent and should be supported. Going on to, that also really, in my mind, addresses the third criteria, which is compatibility with existing land uses. The existing land uses abutting on Webster, North Shore, and somewhat along Baseline, single-family detached. The project proposes single-family detached land uses, buffering up against that multiple-family apartment complex to the east. I don't think there's any serious controversy about whether or not there's infrastructure that can support it, and certainly the project sponsor is looking to make sure that the major amount of the traffic that will be generated by the residents of the project will be in and out on Baseline, with only very light ingress egress off of Webster to respect that little neighborhood enclave right there, and not introduce new traffic onto that street. The final consideration is consistency with the intent and purpose of the zoning ordinance. Your zoning ordinance was recently amended to provide for manufactured housing communities. There is no manufactured housing community zoning in the city of South Haven. Your zoning ordinance has recognized the appropriateness of that type of development up until the change in the zoning ordinance that moved manufactured housing out of the multiple family district and into its own district, this property had already been, to some extent, prejudged as being potentially acceptable and appropriate for this kind of land use. And so while there was a technical change in how your zoning ordinance was constructed and drafted, the uses that have been available and potentially recommended for this property have remained consistent. And I think that brings to a point consistency with the zoning ordinance. In terms of the conditional rezoning agreement, I just want to close by making a few comments about that. I agree with the representation of the city attorney. The proposed agreement is consistent with the voluntary conditions that were offered by the owner. And we absolutely understand and accept that those conditions will run with the land, that if they were ever to be changed, it would require the consent of the city of South Haven and a repeat of this process, public hearings, planning commission input, and ultimately a decision by the city council, and that any violations of that conditional rezoning agreement could be enforced through multiple mechanisms. But I don't believe that there's ever going to be a concern about zoning violations here because of Mr. Rothner's commitment to making this a quality project that represents his recollection and remembrances of South Haven and something that he wishes to share with members of his community in a way that allows them to experience South Haven in a unique way that respects their religious practices and encourages their religious practices. So for all of those reasons, we would ask that you make a recommendation to the City Commission to support the rezoning of the property to manufactured housing community.
Thank you very much. Questions from commissioners for Mr. Wojciechowski or Ms. Palacios?
Mr.
Mike,
Chairman,
go ahead, please.
actually, I would like to ask the city attorney a couple of questions
Sure.
to preface my question to the applicant. I believe we've established in the past, at one of the other meetings for this property, that our current zoning ordinance allows for manufactured housing to be built in any residential district that currently exists, or at least in RM1. Is that correct? Either Kelly or...
We do allow manufactured housing to be built on single-family lots. Yes.
Thank you. I presume, too, that there would be no restriction in a proposal for a PUD if the proposal contained manufactured housing, given that it's already permissible on a single residential lot.
A PUD could have individual manufactured housing units within it, but if they were building a manufactured housing community subject to the state regulations, that would likely be difficult to do under a PUD, because with a PUD, the city would be reviewing the preliminary site, or the preliminary PUD plan, and ultimately site plan control for a manufactured housing community would lie with the state. So, I mean, in theory, you could have a PUD that consists of manufactured houses, but it would be very difficult to have a PUD with a manufactured housing community in the technical sense of that term.
And differentiate for me what is the difference between a residential or manufactured housing community versus a PUD that has 24 manufactured homes? Is it the accessory buildings and the pools, or what is it?
I mean, it would be building a manufactured housing community under the Mobile Home Commission Act of the state.
Okay, which is basically then a choice was made between a PUD and a manufactured housing community. That's what's been made.
I think that's ultimately a question for the applicant.
And exactly, that's the question I'm going to ask them, which I asked the last time but did not have a satisfactory answer. So I would like to understand your process of distinguishing the fact that you want to have a manufactured housing community under the regulations of the Act versus a PUD that would basically accomplish the same thing without the need for a rezoning.
And
what is it about the regulations that you like better under the act versus proposing something of the same sort to the zoning or to the planning commission that would take the law from the zoning ordinance? Like, it's just the process. Why did you decide one versus the other when both were available?
And if I, Chairman, if I could add to Mr. Campbell what might be helpful in your discussion, because I wrote the exact same type of question. We do have, as a good example, Ashley Lane, Woodbridge Circle, and Lena Drive were all PUDs with stick-built homes versus a factory-built home. So those would be good examples to help in your discussion. Thank you.
So there are myriad of ways of developing land. In some instances, owners do land divisions, and they split off the lots that they can, they sell them out, they build stick-built, they put manufactured housing on it. I would believe that the Alan Edwin's project that I spoke of earlier, that's probably a condominium subdivision, a different type of shared ownership that allows for common ownership of limited and general common elements. And what the manufactured housing community option does here is allow the owner to pursue something that is more akin to a condominium ownership situation in terms of common ownership of all of the common elements versus having those common elements divvied up and under different fee ownership. So it really just goes to his vision of the community. If the project is developed as a manufactured housing community, he will continue to own the totality of the acreage, and those who participate in the community will own the individual units in it. So it really just goes to his vision of how this project would work. He will he will control the land for as long as he is around, or his family is in control of the land, and so that he will be able to see that legacy recognized in a way that would not be recognized in the same way if the property were divided up into condominium subdivision lots, platted lots, or land division lots. And so it really goes to the furthering of his vision. And I just want to take one opportunity to make a point that I neglected to make. There was a comment earlier about the rezoning not restricting the owner from using the property for other uses that are permitted by right in the manufactured housing district. And the thing that I would like to point out is that there really only are 5 uses permitted by right. One is the manufactured housing community, which is what the owner is pursuing. The next is a seasonal mobile home park, which that is not what he is pursuing. These are going to be owned units, and there will be no STRs. It will be permanent, continuous occupancy by the same families until they pass ownership off to a subsequent owner. The next 2 types of uses that are allowed in the manufactured housing community district are uses that the state require that you permit by right in any residential district. They are not a part of the applicant's plan. They are adult foster care homes and child daycare homes. Yes, we can't say that they can't be used that way, but state law says none of us can say that residential property can't be used in that way. And then the final one is home occupation, which I guess it is what it is. So was that a more satisfactory answer about the vision, the legacy, the way in which the ownership structure would work?
It is. I have a follow-up, however,
Sure.
Particularly because you focused a lot on the condominium concept. The state of Michigan allows for 99-year ground leases. So is there any reason that you couldn't have pursued that even within a PUD situation to build the same thing, not have to rezone, but have a ground lease so that the owner would then be able to retain ownership and charge lease costs to the owners?
A 99-year ground lease under Michigan law is a land division. Michigan law says that if you lease land for a period in excess of 35 years, it is a land division, and it is required to go through the land division process. And so it does sever relationships between the fee owner and whoever becomes the tenant under the ground lease. And again, I'm not quite sure what that would what that would solve, say, Mr. Rothner, as the ground lessor, lease the property to an affiliate company as the ground lessee, I don't think it answers your concern about why not go through with a PUD. The idea is to keep the land itself in common ownership and have the individual homes owned individually by those occupants. And that's the vision of the community that he's pursuing.
I do have one follow-up question, if I could.
Please, go ahead.
Timmer. So the owner will own all of the property and the common elements. These individuals, and I think one of the presentations were, I don't know, something like a $400,000 home. But that individual doesn't own the land or the slab. They're going to rent on a monthly or yearly basis the ability to have a $400,000 or $500,000 manufactured home there, and then if something were to happen, they would have to move it, so they don't really own the slab or the land, or?
The land will remain owned by Mr. Rothner, because that's how a manufactured housing community works, and it gives him the security of controlling through his legacy how this property is maintained and operated in the future, because as David indicated, his vision is that this is something that goes on for decades that supports the continued livelihood of the synagogue. And that is truly a motivating factor because of the proximity of the property of the synagogue and the ability for members of the synagogue to walk on the Sabbath as they're required to do. And that's the unique opportunity here, and he wants to do what he can to ensure that that vision stays in place for the long term. And your cooperation with the conditional rezoning, his use of the manufactured housing community technique really achieve that in a way that is unique and not replicable through a condominium subdivision or planned unit development, which just addresses the arrangement of land uses. It doesn't address the underlying ownership of those land uses. You are correct. The unit owner will own the structure and the foundation upon which it sits, and he will own the land. I am not privy to what his lease arrangement would be, but you are correct that in manufactured housing communities, the owner of the manufactured housing unit typically pays some degree of rent for the right to be occupying a portion of the property. I'm not privy to Mr. Rothner's financial relationship arrangements with those that he's identified as being strongly interested in participating in this vision.
Okay, and you had mentioned something, so are these homes available for everyone? Is it like public, anybody could walk in and purchase one of these?
Mr. Rothner's already identified 24 families that are interested in purchasing the homes, so there isn't an anticipated marketing period.
Okay.
He has a large network of friends and colleagues who are excited about the opportunity of having a home, a permanent home in South Haven, and so that's the answer.
Thanks. Go ahead, George.
Thank you for being here, first of all. And my question has to do with, and I'm sorry if you've already covered this in previous meetings, but is there anything in the vision for this development that would prevent somebody, say, from living in their dwelling unit the entire year?
Nothing.
Okay.
Nothing. The homes, they are manufactured homes, fully winterized. At the last meeting, we presented the elevations that are anticipated to show the bungalow style. I believe they are 5-bedroom homes with 3 bathrooms. We indicated that through the conditional rezoning, we're committing to a minimum of a 2,000 square foot floor plate for those homes. The cost of the homes is $500,000 and up because of the finishes that will be incorporated into them, which if you look at the Allen Edwin home site, you'll see that, those homes in that development are also, starting right about $500,000 and going up. So not inconsistent with what Allen Edwin's is doing, just a different approach.
Thank you.
In a facility like this can be licensed as a seasonal mobile home park, but you're saying that's not going to be the case here. This will not be a seasonal, because in a seasonal, you are limited as you cannot occupy that year-round.
No, these are intended to be available to the occupants on a year-round basis.
Understand. Thank you. Other comments, questions? I had one or two myself. In your letter specifically, you said the purpose of this letter is to clarify the scope of condition 8, and that was the one in regard to short-term rentals. All the other conditions remain the same. That was your letter of January 19. And I didn't see in the letter where you've really clarified anything. Can you help me understand that?
I am looking at that because I remember doing that at the request of the city attorney, and so maybe he can aid me in remembering why he asked me to clarify.
I'll just clarify, I guess I wouldn't say that it was at the request of the city attorney. Ultimately, it's up to the applicant to offer their conditions. But we noted for the applicant, Ms. Palacios, that the zoning ordinance is not technically in the city code. The city code is a different document, and the zoning ordinance is a separate document. So the original offer was that the manufactured housing units will not be offered or used as short-term rentals unless such activity is authorized by city code. We just pointed out that if there was a change, it would likely not be to the city code. It would potentially be to the zoning ordinance. So the applicant amended that to indicate that the manufactured housing units will not be offered or used as short-term rentals unless such activity is authorized by a city ordinance or ordinance amendment. So there was no change to what I think was the intent of the condition. It was just clarifying that because your zoning ordinance is technically in a different document from the city code, that it should be a different reference.
I responded to the suggestion that we make our condition more clear with respect to the city's unique statutory structure.
Understand. And in your letter, pardon me, you mentioned that you would request, I guess, from the city 24 months from the date the zoning change became effective to meet the conditions 1 through 6. But I find at least a couple of them are, I'm going to say, somewhat subjective. For example, condition 6, all of the buildings on site will be built using standard construction methods. Is that clearly understood what standard construction methods are?
That was intended to foreclose manufactured construction. The idea being that stick-built was...
So the community building, for example, the maintenance shed and so
Correct.
on would not be manufactured. They
Correct.
would be stick-built as
Stick-built.
people like
Yeah,
to say.
yes. It was using standard construction methods as opposed to manufactured methods.
Okay. And condition 1 said no more than 24 manufactured housing units. So I guess if at the end of 24 months you had 1 or 2 or 3, you'd be in compliance because that's not more than 24.
No more than 24 manufactured housing units may be constructed on the land, so that's a limit on the number of
Right.
units and density.
Right.
And then what we have self-imposed is 24 months to get those 24 units on the land.
So you would meet that condition if you had 1 unit on site.
I, as the drafter of that condition and having discussed it with my client, that was not our thinking. Our thinking was the requirement was that we have all 24
Understand.
on the site in order to vest the approval to the full 24.
Understand. Okay, thanks. Any other questions for council or Mr. Wojciechowski?
Maybe this doesn't matter, but if all 6 conditions aren't met within 24 months, let's just say one of the on-site buildings isn't finished, what does that do to this agreement?
What it does is the owner applicant would have the opportunity to seek an extension through a process that's laid out in your zoning ordinance, and the city could make a decision about whether or not it was reasonable to grant that extension. I'm sure your zoning ordinance has examples of where site plans are extended
Okay.
after a timeline for good cause shown. So it's a good cause shown extension that is built into the process.
Okay, thank you.
And in fact, a lot of the, I'll say, amenities outlined in the plan as it's been presented, pools, pickleball, volleyball, community buildings, et cetera, those are not part of the conditions. So if those are not there at the end of 24 months, you would not be in violation of your conditions. Do I understand that right?
That is, I think, so all of the other on-site, number 6 is all of the other buildings on-site being built to standard construction. My reading, and I think my client's understanding is those buildings are also constructed within that 24-month period. And if they're not so constructed, we would need to approach the city for an extension under a good cause standard.
So if you don't have a pickleball court there,
Well, a pickleball court is not a
Building,
building, but I also don't think that we have any pickleball courts incorporated. I think there is the pool area, and there are basketball courts and some other court activities, but I don't recall seeing a pickleball court.
there are,
Okay.
and volleyball as well, but
Okay.
I understand, okay.
The purpose of the 24 months is, as was indicated in the first part of our presentation, which is it allows the site to be improved while the units are being constructed and readied for delivery to the site, and then provide ample time to get each one of those units situated.
All right,
And we did choose 24 months because we wanted to try to indicate a willingness and ability to move swiftly and not have this drag out.
all right. Thanks very much, you've been helpful.
Thank you.
We do have a public hearing associated with this item. Is there a motion to open a public hearing?
I'll make a motion to open a public hearing.
Support.
Moved and supported, open a public hearing. All in favor, say yes.
Yes.
The public hearing is open, and before we start, one or two things. Kelly has a citizen who would like to be heard, who, for whatever reason, can't physically be present, and you've made arrangements, I think, for that citizen to be heard, correct?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, Susan Shields has requested accommodation due to, for medical purposes, and so similar to accommodation that we offered previously to a member of the public to participate in the public hearing, we agreed that I would use my cell phone and call her. So I will do that now. I will place a phone call and then place her on speakerphone and hold it up to the microphone so that she can have her 5 minutes of public comment.
Thank you. Please proceed.
Okay. Put you on speakerphone. Okay, go ahead, Susan.
Ready? Good evening. This is Susan Shields. I'm a decades-long resident at 777 North Shore, and I am vehemently opposed to rezoning 120 Baseline as an MHC. We are not against development itself. It sounds like the developer has done extensive preparation, and he would be ready to go. And I think one advantage of manufactured housing is quicker, much quicker. But the situation is, if he wants to do this legacy project, he does not need for the rezoning to be a manufactured housing community. And what I've learned in this months and months long deep dive into zoning is that an MHC not only removes all measures of control of this project from our city to the Manufactured Housing Commission in Lansing, but it deprives South Haven of a very important tax base. Manufactured homes pay a small fraction of the taxes that most of us residents pay. And I can imagine how much it costs to run this city, and I think it's short-sighted and so wrong to change the zoning in such a way that the taxes achieved would be so very minimal. So it's easy for me to be brief because to me this is a completely clear question of no. And I urge you to listen to the loud voices of the dozens and dozens of letters and dozens of neighbors who have spoken out against this. Mr. Rothner is completely welcome to go ahead with putting quality manufactured homes on his property at 120 Baseline. He can do that with the current zoning. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan, very much. And the public hearing is open. For those present who would like to speak, I'm going to preface it with one or two things, if you'll allow me. Of course, there's been much discussion on this agenda item over many, many months. I think it goes back to September, if my memory might be right. Many of you have communicated verbally at meetings. You've communicated via email and letters. And I just want to assure you that every one of those comments have been read and considered very carefully. I'll ask that all speakers to be as concise as possible in your comments. There isn't a need to restate things that have been stated by multiple other speakers, so if you can be respectful of everyone's time, that would be appreciated. And I'll say a couple of items just for the record, again, to make sure everyone understands. This is the first step, potentially at least, the first step of a multi-step process. The Planning Commission's role is to recommend to City Council that this request be approved or denied. Once that recommendation is made, City Council will consider that, and that body will determine what action is to be taken. As it's already been said tonight, Planning Commission is bound to consider the 5 items specifically outlined in the zoning ordinance. Specifically, for example, is this consistent with the master plan? And the other 4 items, we'll talk about each of those as we go forward. Those are the items that we need to consider. Other factors, many have cited tax revenue associated with this property that might be gained or lost to the city. Any allegations of inappropriate behavior by anyone associated with the property. Additional burdens that might be placed on beaches or other resources within the city. All of those they're emotional, but they're not really relevant to our decision to recommend approval or denial. So I'll ask you to keep that in mind. And finally, as has been said already, but just one more time for the record, all conditions submitted by the owner when requesting this rezoning, if approved, will remain with the land essentially forever. Even in the case of a future sale, those conditions will still be enforced. So with those things in mind, if you would like to speak to this topic, please come forward, and as usual, identify yourself and your address, and you'll have 5 minutes to speak.
Barry Fiddleman, 220 Broadway, and I'm representing the First Hebrew Congregation. I'm a Board of Directors member of the First Hebrew Congregation. This congregation has been here, by the way, 2027. It will be our centennial year, 100 years. And for that period of time, it's gone through some ups and downs. There was a time when it almost ceased to exist. But in the last, since 2000, we have been able to increase our membership and renovate the entire facility to the point it is today. Now, unfortunately, on the Sabbath morning, which is Saturday mornings, Mr. Rothner and I would sit in there, and here would be people walking into the synagogue, but we couldn't achieve 10 men, which is a minyan, and you cannot conduct a service without a full service without 10 men. That's the rules for the Orthodox Jewish community. 2 or 3 weeks, we didn't have 10 men. We really need this project to bulk up and ensure that we can maintain the facility that we have and produce a service for all factions of Judaism, which is on Friday nights we have Reformed. During the high holidays, we have Egalitarian Conservative, and every Saturday morning throughout the summer, we have Orthodox services. But we can't conduct them without 10 men. This is to ensure, and Mr. Rothner, this is the purpose of why he initiated this project, was to ensure that we have services every Saturday morning and that he can attend and we can all attend and have a full service. Now, I realize that that's not really a reason to grant any kind of provisions concerning the zoning of this thing. But Mr. Rothner, when he is selling these parcels, wanted to make a provision that they could not conduct services on Saturday morning, and he has to own the property, the land, in order to make that proviso. In other words, he won't allow any of the new residents there to have services on Saturday morning on the premises. They have to walk to the synagogue, and that was the plan. And that's how he structured it, and he devised everything under the old statute and old zoning ordinance that he could accomplish this. So I just want to let you all know that he had ulterior motives, and the motives were to sustain our synagogue in South Haven and make it function. And by the way, it's a very unique, no synagogue has had Reformed, Orthodox, and conservative services under the same roof. We're the only ones that have been able to pull it off. And that's because we defined our synagogue, First Hebrew Congregation, as a small-town synagogue. Take care of all your constituents, every Jew in the area. So anyway, if there's any questions, I'm not going to go any further because they covered everything, really. No questions?
Thank
Good.
you very much. Appreciate
Thank
your
you.
comments.
Dennis Lewis, 1439 Clark. I was going to stand up here and say I'm not against the project as it is, but I was against the rezoning, the unconditional rezoning. Now, I didn't read the package before I came to the meeting, unfortunately, to realize this is actually now a conditional rezoning. And that's alleviated a lot of my fears about the possible density, because, you always think of what are the unintended consequences, or what's the worst thing that could happen if it got rezoned? Well, if we're unconditional, the worst thing would be high-density mobile homes or trailers. I put it worse than mobile homes, trailers. Now that seems to have gone away, so I'm not as opposed as I was before. So, thank you.
Thanks for your comments.
I'm Mike Klein, 777 North Shore. A couple things I want to address. First off, I want to clarify the developer was conflating modular homes with the mobile, manufactured mobile homes. They're not the same. I want to make sure that we're being really clear here. We can't call manufactured homes modular homes. They're very different. The developer also proposed that this is single-family homes. This is not a proposal for single-family homes. This is for MHC and rezoning for a mobile home community. So what I want to focus on tonight is what I believe is the most important issue in front of this commission. This is fundamentally a zoning decision, not a design decision. And while the developer has offered considerations for porches and fences and landscaping, those things do not change what this application is about, which is requesting a rezoning of the property to MHC to support mobile homes. The question before you is not whether this particular plan looks better because of these conditions the developer offered. The question remains whether whether MHC zoning is appropriate for this property and for the neighborhood. Based on the city standard, is clearly not. The master plan does not support MHC in this zoning location. The 2018 plan doesn't. The new proposals for the latest master plan does not. The surrounding neighborhoods do not contain manufactured home communities, and the existing land uses around the property are not compatible with MHC. But what concerns me the most is what could happen after this zoning change, because, and we should be really clear on this zoning request is very different from the zoning requests that come before this commission on a normal basis. Once you make a change to MHC, it becomes permanent, and you lose control, the city loses control over a lot of the considerations around this property. That's not like most of the zoning considerations that you are going through or that you are asked to consider. If you rezone to MHC, the authority will shift away from the city to the Michigan Manufactured Housing Commission, with the majority of those commissioners employed by the mobile home industry that are pro-mobile home, pro-mobile park developments. And I understand that they have no requirements to hold the developer accountable to the same level that the city has. If this is different than a special land use or a PUD under the current zoning, and if this property is rezoned to MHC, it may be nearly impossible to undo that decision later. So I think you really need to understand how the State Commission can supersede the city and local property requirements. I'd also encourage you to consider the red flags that go up around the requirements of the Fair Housing Act, because a lot of the things we heard tonight throw a bunch of red flags around fair housing, and I think as a planning commission, as a city, you really need to be paying attention to that. So it's critical that you separate the conditions of the proposal from the actual zoning decision in front of you, because this is not about one developer or one site plan. It's about whether the city wants to permanently establish MHC zoning in this location and give up city control over the property. And it's about whether MHC zoning is appropriate for this neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mike. Other comments?
Good evening. My name is Rick Fleming, and I'm also a property owner at 777 North Shore Drive, along with my wife, Diana. It's a pleasure to be here tonight. As you may recall, I did spend most of my career in the building material industry, so I understand manufactured housing fairly well. At our last few meetings, I did discuss several concerns about the manufactured housing community zoning situation in Michigan. As you've heard, conversion to that model would reduce property taxes, but more importantly, as you heard from Mike, it cedes control to the Michigan Manufactured Housing Commission in Lansing. And quite frankly, that is an industry-controlled commission. There's one local government representative on it, and the rest of the board of directors come from the industry. And I'm an industry person, so I know that. The commission operates under a 1987 law, despite repeated attempts to reform it. And that is correct. It's a 1987 law. You heard that properly. Further, Michigan has the second highest private equity ownership of manufactured housing communities in the nation. Over 25% of them are private equity. And you might say, well, why is that? Because they love Michigan manufactured housing. They love it because we have a lax regulatory environment in this state, and that has resulted in them being able to implement their business model. Let me quickly summarize that model for you. Once it flips to private equity, they increase the lot rents as much as 100%. They cut the maintenance dramatically. They'll put mortgages on the community and pass that cost of debt on to the residents. And the residents are trapped because they cannot afford to move their homes. So that's the business model that you would be inviting into this town if you provide that zoning. Now, the developer will say, that's not me. You've heard that tonight. I just want to develop a high-end vacation community. But you've also heard that the developer does not need MHC zoning to proceed with this project as a PUD. RM1 zoning would be fine for what he is proposing. And you heard from Susan, and I agree with her, the development plan is fine with the neighbors of 120 baseline. We are not against the development plan. We are not against with what Mr. Rothner wants to do. We are simply against the request to rezone this property to MHC. And why are we against MHC zoning? Because, as you heard from Mike, the city of South Haven and our elected representatives, you will cede control of this project to the Michigan Manufactured Housing Commission in Lansing. The property tax revenue, of course, will be dramatically reduced, even though the residents using that property will use and benefit from city services. That kind of comes along with the zoning. The zoning change, as you heard from Mike, will be permanent. There is no going back. And that zoning, with that zoning, Mr. Rothner, over 80, maybe this will be his legacy in staying in the family, that property can be flipped to private equity at a moment's notice. So please ponder this question. Why does the developer want MHC zoning so badly when he could proceed with the project under the current RM1 zoning? And there really are only two reasons. He wants limited property taxes, that comes with the package, and he wants the option to flip it to private equity to the highest bidder. And so here's my final thought. Michigan law allows the residents who are most affected by a zoning change to file a protest petition. This law defines those residents as those neighbors that live within 100 feet of the development. If 20% of those neighbors sign the petition, then a two-thirds majority of the city council,
You have 1 minute remaining.
yes, is needed to approve the zoning change instead of a simple majority. As you know, a protest petition has been filed in this rezoning request. It was filed in March based on the signatures collected in January and February. So here's the message. In the middle of the dead of winter, 33.8% of the residents most directly affected by this project said that if anyone's going to do this change, it must be voted by a two-thirds majority of the city council. In short, the neighbors of this project wanted to make sure that if the city council and the planning commission approve this zoning change, you do it with your eyes wide open. That's a strong message from your voters. The neighbors of 120 Baseline vehemently oppose this project. We hope you agree with us, and thank you for all you do for our neighborhood and for the city of South Haven.
Thanks for your comments. Appreciate them.
And as a reminder, before the next individual comes up, we are not elected. We are appointed.
And unpaid as well.
And I have the lack of paycheck to prove it.
Yes, sir, please come forward.
Well, I wasn't planning on coming here to say anything, but after listening, I really wish to. And I don't like paralysis by analysis either. I know we've had a lot of
Would you be
analysis.
kind enough to identify yourself? and
Oh,
your
Mark
address?
Schupan, and I'm at, I have a place at Windsurfer. I've been there for 20 years, and I
Thank you.
have a place in Kalamazoo. I actually know manufactured housing a little bit because I have a major plant in Elkhart, Indiana, where we handle a lot of these facilities, so pretty familiar with it. I think, quite frankly, it comes down to this. Is this good for South Haven? I mean, I will tell you, I'm just going to tell you. I will ask, if this thing goes through the way, I'm going to ask for a tax rebate or some kind of a tax rebate because you're going to lower the value of my property, I believe, because if this thing goes through, if you look at that corner where we're at, just the traffic and the challenge, it is not going to make South Haven a more attractive place. The other thing that really kind of aggravated a little bit, no offense, I am Jewish also, okay? I don't go to synagogue a lot, but I don't like to see something, well, we're doing this because it's good for the synagogue. I mean, Kalamazoo is a pretty good size. We have trouble getting 10 people there, and we got a lot more Jewish people there. Unless he's planning on selling these facilities to Orthodox Jewish people so they can walk there, I don't think you're going to find anything that really makes a lot of sense for that. If you want to walk to the synagogue, whether Orthodox, conservative, they can do it. But I don't think having this facility is going to change that greatly. And I hear really great things about the synagogue. But anyway, I'm just saying, if you look at it, Mark Twain always says, you never go wrong doing the right thing. And what is the right thing for South Haven? To make it a better place to be, something more attractive. Again, you say, well, it doesn't matter, it's not going to matter to the beach. Well, I can promise you, when all those people start walking across the street to go to the beach, it isn't going to be if it's public or not. And I don't know which one of you want to be there to monitor who's coming and who's not coming or shouldn't be there, but it's going to be a real problem. But anyway, that's a little bit emotional. I'm not always right, but I'm seldom in doubt, so just so you know. Okay, thanks.
Thanks for your comments.
Good evening. My name is Diana Fleming, and I reside at 777 North Shore Drive. I'm here to ask you to deny the developer's 120 Baseline Road request to change existing zoning. The developer is asking to change current zoning to include Michigan Manufacturing Housing Commission language. I want to discuss the developer's request from a historical and humanitarian perspective. South Haven has had Michigan Manufacturing Housing Commission as part of its community in the past, and from my perspective, it was a humanitarian disaster. That humanitarian disaster was Meadowbrook Estates, and its history can be viewed from the 2017 Fox News coverage. While we talk about environmental impact, government control, taxes, etc., we have not discussed the impact on people, future owners of the structures at 120 Baseline Road, should that property be rezoned to include MHC language. I hope you all have had a chance to view the Fox News coverage of Meadowbrook, but if you were unable to see that story, allow me to summarize the issues from a humanitarian perspective regarding Meadowbrook Estates. In 2017, a firm called Special Assets bought Meadowbrook Estates. After the purchase, Special Assets informed the residents by mail that they had 1 month to either move out or deal with a tripling in lot rent to $1,000 a month. The cost of relocating their homes was between $10,000 and $20,000. Special Assets never had the decency to meet with the residents or with the media to answer the phone. It's hard to negotiate with someone who never answers the phone. In the end, all the residents moved out, many of whom were senior citizens, including several who were dying of cancer. Personally, I consider those circumstances to be a humanitarian disaster. You, as the South Haven Planning Commission and the South Haven City Council, are public officials and responsible for the welfare of the people in this community. While Meadowbrook Estates may have been an unfortunate circumstance with respect to naive and vulnerable citizens versus private equity, the South Haven government can and should protect the residents from future-like situations. What do each of you on the Planning Commission want your legacy to be regarding the city of South Haven and protecting its residents? The current 120 Baseline Road zoning is sufficient for the developer to build out his property as it stands now. Please do not allow for the possibility of another MHC Meadowbrook Estate disaster. Deny the developer's request to change 120 Baseline Road zoning, which he wants to include MHC. And finally, thank you for allowing me to express my opinion.
Thank you, Diana, for your comments. Mr. Barnes, good evening.
Thanks for all your time tonight. Andrew Barnes, attorney for Wind Surfer Condominium Association. I'll be brief because I know this has already been a long night, right? I want to frame some of the comments you've heard tonight from the residents in terms of the items you need to review in your ordinance, right? So one of the items is item C in section 2503. And that is the item that talks about whether this amendment will result in the property that's being developed to be compatible with existing land uses in the vicinity. So one thing you've heard, obviously, is there's the protest petition that 19 adjacent property owners have signed, right? That doesn't affect, as you know, how your vote goes tonight. That's affecting the City Council's vote number. But I think it's still relevant for you to know and see that these property owners are saying to you that this rezone is not going to be compatible with their surrounding properties. They don't believe that, right? So I think that goes a long way in your analysis. Along the same lines, I would point out again that I think you need to look in that compatibility analysis in terms of how the governance will be between adjacent properties, right? So as you've already heard and as you already know from your staff report, there is the Mobile Home Commission Act. And I don't blame you if you haven't read it. It's long, it's not very exciting, right? There's a long list of regulations that go with it, but there is preemption, right? So your ordinances essentially can't be more stringent than some of those regulations. Regulations go into things in terms of how the property is developed, but also how it's used, even in terms of how often the city can inspect long-term rental units there, right? So it goes into quite a bit of length and affects the property. So if you rezone this to MHC, you're going to have single-family residences adjacent that are governed by all the relevant city ordinances, but yet you're going to have residences within MHC that are not governed by all those, right? There's preemption. They're restricted somewhat. So you're not comparing apples to apples. There's not compatibility in that analysis. I also again would point out to you that your own zoning ordinance, section 1400, points out to you that determining a location for an MHC is a uniquely challenging task, and it may have a crucial impact on adjacent and surrounding land uses. So remember that as you're analyzing your items in your section 2503. And one last thing, it was long, I think it was Commissioner Campbell pointed out, the question to the developer was, why not a PUD? I don't know, in terms of just basic real property law, I don't see why the developer couldn't do a PUD, still own all the land, own the pickleball court and the common elements, as you want to call it, without doing a condominium, but still own that and then still rent land spots for, manufactured housing. So I don't know why it couldn't be done. It's just really a developer preference, right? And we might all speculate as to why, but that is a developer preference, I would say. So with that, thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Andy.
Mary Majorano, 136 Webster. You've probably received many letters from me. But please vote against this. Having you losing control will not be good for the rest of us. Let me tell you about me. I worked my whole life as a social worker. I had a dream home to build, and we followed every rule that the city put before us. It was my responsibility to figure out how to do it within the city requirements. We did it. And the LLC that owns this property where their address is Chicago, I don't know, are they dig in? But I don't want you to lose control, because when the pickleballs are flying, I want to know, who do I call to get them to stop with the noise? And you had said about, it doesn't sound like it'll be too dense. 24 5-bedroom homes with, and I heard her say, with people and their guests. Okay, there's a lot of people that are coming in. That's a lot of people that are using all these resources. The other thing that really concerned me is one of the other meetings they talked about, if the drainage fills up, they'll let it flow into the ravine behind the back of the property. That was said at a meeting. I'm probably not stating it as they did. I talked to somebody who works at Eagle, and they said, no, that's not a given that you can just let water flow into a ravine that ultimately goes to the Black River and then to Lake Michigan. If you give up your control, will the Michigan manufactured home, will they be concerned about that? I'm concerned about it. And that's all. Please, do the right thing.
Thank you, Mary.
I'm Jerry Durkee. I live at 243 Webster Avenue, and I'm going to be real short because everybody's already said most of the things I would have said. Our home is on Webster. We own 4 vacant lots on Webster. I want you to deny the request because I want local control. And if I'm paying property tax on one of my 4 vacant lots, which is 10 times or 20 times or 30 times higher than a homeowner at 120 Webster, I'm going to be mad every time I write that check. Thank you.
Thanks, Jerry. Appreciate it.
Hi, my name's Gwen Klein, and I'm at 777 North Shore. I'm trying to think of how to eliminate a number of the things I was going to say because they've already been said. But I will say that I tried to listen very carefully to the attorney for the developer. And I kept hearing her say that Mr. Rothner has a vision for this. But all of us who live here have a vision also. And It's not the same as his. If it was, we'd be looking for a trailer park to live in. I also know that when you consider this, you have to consider it against the 5 criteria that the city has written when you are considering rezoning. First off, the 2018 and the 2025 suggest that this be single-family housing, not an MHC. So when she explains that the whole criteria difference is a home, could be any kind of facility, then why do we even have zoning laws? If there's different and flexible definitions about what a home is or a single-family residence. The second criteria is not met also because it's not consistent with the development trends in the area. There are no manufactured housing communities in this part of South Haven. There's no trend of placing MHC communities among single-family housing neighborhoods anywhere in South Haven. So I don't see how it fits the second criteria. The neighborhood that's being in question here is already established. It's well-defined by traditional single-family homes and conventional multifamily residential development. So why would a current or future resident assume that an established single-family neighborhood could be changed suddenly to allow for a manufactured housing community to be developed in the center? It's inconsistent with the established development of the neighborhood. Again, the applicant has not met the third rezoning criteria, or excuse me, the second. The third is that the proposed zoning is not compatible with surrounding land uses. Well, compatibility is not about how it looks. It's about how the land use patterns are, the density, the layout, and the zoning structure. A trailer park of 24 units and 7.5 acres is not compatible in any way with the existing roads, traffic, and foot traffic in this area. You would never put 24 homes side by side that are 2,000 square feet in 7.5 acres, but we're considering doing trailers. I'm not sure I get that. Fourth, the applicant has not shown or proven that the city's infrastructure is adequate to handle the density and the scope of this development. Keep in mind, this was on his shoulders. The burden's on his shoulders to provide a competent engineering analysis that shows that water, sewer, stormwater, and traffic systems can support this development. This has not been done. He just said it will work. So for all these reasons, I would say we're not meeting the 5 criteria. I thank you for listening. I hope you vote our way.
Thank you very much.
Hi, Ann Pantalone, excuse me, 777 North Shore Drive. One of you said to me when I met you last fall that you didn't care what was put on this property. At least it was being developed. Somebody was going to build something. Are we okay with a cannabis dispensary, a garbage dump, a strip club? I think we have to be concerned with what is built there. That is your responsibility. And we want to follow the vision of the master plan and the community. The community's been very vocal and very clear. The people who oppose this have shown up and written more letters and spoke more than the people who have wanted this. That has been very few as far as I can tell. The city has said they want affordable housing. $500,000 trailers does not sound affordable to me. It doesn't matter what they say they're putting there, though. It's all about the rezoning, and you have no oversight, and they talked about the taxes, and so I won't go into that again, but I think you do need to do the right thing. We do care what's built there. Thank you. Vote no.
Thank you so much. Any other comments? If there are other speakers, if it would accelerate the process, maybe you could come forward before the other speaker is finished so we can transition a little quicker.
My name is Eric Rothner, and you call me a developer, it's more like I'm a dreamer. I've been part of this community since 1949. I've built 5 homes. And as a matter of fact, when you talk about 777 North Shore Drive, I was here before when that was a vacant piece of property. You talk about Webster Street, I was here when it was Yashinovsky's the resort. And so I've been here, part of this community, all these years, and I love South Haven. My house on North Shore Drive, 441, is next to the monstrosity that was built, the black home on North Shore Drive. I'm the lucky guy who lives next door. And I have a dream, and I wanted to make sure that the synagogue remains, and I wanted to make sure that observant Jews could walk. I never had walked to synagogue. And I can tell you, I'm 82, it's getting tougher than it was when I was 42. But I managed to make it. I was also here, there's a street called Oakwee, and I built 3 homes for 3 children on Oakwee. And who believed that there was a bunch of trees there? So they cut down the trees and they made a street. So I've built 5 homes here already. And they're nice homes. And what I plan on building here is also nice. I bought it, you know, think about it. Before today, if I didn't do what I did, you'd have a closed nursing home that was really, after we bought it, it was really a hangout. And they broke in and they stole all kinds of stuff. So I'm not here as a stranger. I'm here to build a community. And what I did before I bought, I did visit with the city. And I asked them if this fits their zoning laws. I was assured that it does, and then they changed the law. That's after I spent several $1 million on the vacant property, spent about $700,000 on knocking down the nursing homes, and I'm not here as a land grabber or somebody that's here to make a quick buck. I don't need the quick buck, and it's a legacy. And if you have any questions, I don't know if it's my right to answer, but I'll be glad to.
Thank you. It's really not a question and answer, just your chance to make comments. We appreciate you being here. Thank you.
I'm Jennifer Durkee. I live at 243 Webster Avenue, and I had no intention of saying anything today, but now I feel like I have to. I built 5 houses in South Haven and have lived here most of my life. And I can certainly appreciate Mr. Rothner's sentimentality and the meaningfulness of coming to South Haven for many, many years. I appreciate his desire to leave a legacy. I appreciate his desire to build the Jewish community back up in this town. But I do believe that all of these things can be done without the zoning change. And I share the very vocal opposition group's opinion that losing control as a city and turning that over to the Manufactured Home Commission, I think, would be a travesty. And I just thank you for all the time and effort you put into this, and I certainly hope you're listening to the majority. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. Seeing no other speakers, is there a motion to?
Mr. Chairman,
yes, ma'am.
if I could remind you to read the
Of
public
course I
comment
will.
received. Thank you.
thanks to Samantha and Kelly, we regularly do this. As I said earlier tonight, we read carefully those communications that we get. Samantha puts together a list of those who have communicated and what their feeling is. And I can tell you, I've got about 4 or 5 pages here, and every one of these citizens is opposed to the rezoning of 120 Baseline Road. So Mike Klein at 777 North Shore Drive, Susan Shields, who we heard on the phone earlier, Suzanne Schloss at 612 North Shore, John and Kathy Duda on North Shore Drive, Catherine and Dick Watts, also on North Shore Drive, Keith Kalinowski and Anne Marie Heidbuchel, my apologies if I'm mispronouncing a name, Jerome LaRoe, Andreas and Mary Sashegi, Patricia Yelmini, Mary Majorano, Mary is here tonight, Colleen Klotz, Linda Albury, Carlos Stivers, Colleen Klotz, Sharon Craig, Gwen Klein, Wayne Pacina on Brockway, Jay Campbell on North Shore Drive, Michael and Charlene Matheny, John Albury on North Shore Drive, Dean and Lynn Fedewa on North Shore Drive, Mary Ellen Keith on North Shore Drive, Pat and Mike McInnes, Gerard and Jennifer Durkee, we've heard from the Durkees tonight, Richard and Diana Fleming, we've heard from them as well, Jenny LaRue, Sharon Craig, Thomas Powell, Ann Pantalone and Dan O'Donnell on North Shore Drive, Robert and Martha Latch, Marty McGrath, Diana Fleming, Mark and Jean Chupin, who is here tonight, Craig and Penny Massey. All of those folks communicated by letter or email their opposition to the rezoning of 120 Baseline Road. Samantha does a terrific job of trying to make that list complete and accurate. If by chance I've missed any, did anyone have a communication that I overlooked? Well, thanks again, Samantha, for putting all that together. Is there a motion to close the public hearing?
I move to close the hearing.
Support.
Moved and supported to close the public hearing. All in favor say yes.
Yes.
The public hearing is closed. And now we can move on to the meat of the subject. We've made many references to the 5 conditions specifically called out in the South Haven zoning ordinance that shall consider the following factors. So let's just talk about them individually, and let's see if we can reach a consensus as to what that might be. Mike, did you have a comment?
Yes, actually a request. May we have a break?
Certainly, if that's the mood of the group. I'll say we're in recess for 10 minutes or less.
Thank you. That's going to mention it. Yeah, an hour and 45 minutes.
as I said earlier, we receive all these comments via email, letter, and what have you, and consider them carefully and value your and respect your opinion. So, the matter at hand, we need to consider at least these 5 issues, if you will, factors that the zoning ordinance says we shall consider. So let's discuss them individually and see if we can find a consensus on those. Ultimately, we need to act on a possible resolution that's in the packet or modify that resolution in some way. So, factor A, is the proposed zoning amendment consistent with the city's adopted master plan? And we have to at least temporarily put aside the draft update to the master plan, which may be approved shortly, but is not. So we're focusing on the 2018 South Haven master plan. So discussion, comments, please. Is it consistent with the adopted master plan?
Mr. Chairman, if I might, the findings that are listed on page 13 of the package, I have to admit, I've read it 2 or 3 times. I'm not sure I understand what the recommendation is or the findings that are listed there.
Well, page 13 begins the 5
Right, it does.
items
And the
that are
first one-
specifically
the
called
fir-
out in the zoning ordinance.
And item A, there's a good discussion there. But the question we have to answer is the first question, right? If the proposed zoning amendment is consistent with the city's adopted master plan. As I read that, and maybe my expectations are incorrect, but I guess I was looking for a recommendation or a conclusion, and I didn't see one. Am I thinking unclearly?
Well,
Brad, is that part of what you authored, those comments on page 13 and following?
Correct, yes.
That's what I
And
thought.
it's really to provide you with thought of items to consider while deliberating it. I can't make a decision for anyone here.
So you don't really make a recommendation, and my expectation of finding one here was unrealistic on my part. This is just material for us to consider.
Exactly, while
Okay.
you make your
Thank you, I'm
determination.
sorry.
Yep.
I'll say it's a little bit of background information.
Okay, thank you.
So,
Mr.
Yes, sir.
Chairman, I'm
Please,
happy
Mike.
to start. I will repeat what I have said in the past, and that is, yes, the master plan, and specifically talking about this property, talks about single-family housing. However, I believe that because we have at least 16 references to workforce or missing middle housing, that our priority should be for making sure that properties that are coming up for special land use, rezoning, or whatever, are meeting the needs of our master plan's major requirement, and that is to have missing middle or workforce housing. And I won't go into a lot of detail because in the past meeting, I also spoke to the fact that this housing, as it's been described by the owner as well as the representatives, that has been printed in newspapers and what have you, by no means is missing middle or workforce housing. So for that reason, I do not believe it meets the master plan. I also want to point out that, again, something that I mentioned before, I don't even think we have necessarily a complete application because 2503 2E says that the applicant must state the changed or changing conditions in the area or in the city that make the proposed amendment reasonably necessary to the promotion of the public health, safety, and general welfare. We have talked about the fact that this is now RM1, and that aside from the fact that the owner wishes to retain ownership of the land underneath the proposed manufactured homes, that otherwise this could be accomplished with a PUD. And we don't even know for sure that the owner's wish couldn't be accomplished with a ground lease. That would have to be worked out. I know the owner's attorney said that that would be a division of land. We don't have any opinion from our attorney. However, I thought that may be a reason for the change. But then we had speaker who said that the reason, the ulterior motive, using the words of the speaker, for the owner's desire to retain the land was to make sure that the occupants of those manufactured homes do not practice their religious practice on the premise, but rather are part of the congregation. And so, to me, that personal motivation for owning the land is not particularly significant to us in looking at whether or not there's a change condition for requiring us to rezone this to MHC. Given that we can do this with a PUD, presumably, in an RM1, I don't think they have established the change that's required to have a valid application to begin with. That aside, someone may disagree. I've given you a comment about why it doesn't meet the master plan.
Thanks for that, Mike. Appreciate it. Other comments on item A? Is this request consistent with the city's master plan?
So I'll go next. So I'm looking at this fairly simply. The master plan suggests single-family housing. I look at the definition of a single-family dwelling as in our zoning ordinance, and to me, this meets the definition of a single-family dwelling. So I believe it does meet the master plan.
Paul, go ahead.
If I may, George, I agree with you, but I also agree with Mike in that I think it does meet that definition. But I also think it doesn't meet what we've stated in multiple places related to affordable housing. It's not remotely targeted at that.
And my thoughts is I don't feel like it meets the master plan. I mean, I definitely can see where a manufactured home can be a single-family home. However, reclassification to manufactured housing community district does not meet the master plan for this property.
Other thoughts, Larry?
We're not in a position to be able to instruct the developer how he's going to develop. I mean, it might appear to us to be a good idea to do a PUD, but that's up to the developer. So I don't think we need to even discuss whether it's a good idea. It's strictly up to him. As I see this, the master plan says single-family development, and this, as proposed, is a single-family development. Now, it doesn't meet every goal of the master plan, but the master plan has a lot of goals in it, and every development can't meet every one of them.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, I agree. I disagree that it meets that criteria. I do think that single-family residential means larger lots and wider lot widths and more low density. And I don't think that I think there's too much density in this to meet that criteria.
And I'll say that Mike's point is correct in that I think the city, and I'm using that term kind of nebulously, the city council, city staff, there's a huge desire to provide affordable housing, workforce housing, missing middle housing, whatever jargon you want to put on it. But that certainly is an important objective for the city, and I believe that's what was intended by the statement in the master plan. The facility's location is in an area predominantly developed for detached single-family dwellings as well as nearby beach, may render the site attractive for single-family development at some point in the future. That's just vague enough to allow the proposal to meet it, but I am totally with Mike in that the proposal does not speak to the absence of affordable housing, whether it's workforce housing, missing middle family, whatever you want to call it. So I'm hearing mixed opinions as to whether it is consistent with the city's adopted master plan. How about item B? Is the proposed zoning amendment consistent with recent development trends in the area? Anyone with a thought there?
Well, I guess I'll go first. Same kind of thought process I used for item A, same used for item B. If this is indeed a development for single-family dwelling units, that is, to me, consistent with recent development trends in the area. So I'd say this is met.
Okay. Other thoughts?
I don't see any state licensed manufactured housing community developments anywhere in this area. So, and any development trends in the area or even the city.
Mr. Chairman, I would agree with Commissioner Gruber.
Thank you. Paul, go ahead.
I would agree with that statement, but I also think on the other side of that is unless we get serious and we actually take action to define a location where MHC is acceptable, I think that's an awkward negative. And what I mean by that is that sentence is true everywhere in the city. So, yes, I agree with you literally, but I'm uncomfortable with it because we haven't taken the initiative to figure out how to address this issue. And I think we should.
I agree with you. I do think we need to think about that one way or the other, but we hadn't in the past. And I think we're talking just about this piece of property right now.
You're right.
And what's going on around this piece of property. So I would say that it is not consistent with the neighborhood in that area.
Larry, anything to offer?
What's going on around this is single family, and the proposal is single family.
I'd suggest, I drove down Webster Street, and then I searched BSA online for properties, and certainly there have been some traditional stick-built single-family homes on Webster in the last 2 to 3 years. If you drive down North Shore Drive, there are multiple traditional single-family homes, stick-built homes. So recent development trends in the area are for that traditional kind of construction and kind of dwellings. This, I would suggest, is not consistent with those trends, and Clark makes a good point. There is no other manufactured home community in the area, in the whole city, so we can't say it's consistent in that regard. So
I think, Mr. Chairman, we have to be very careful distinguishing between manufactured built and stick built. There is significant court action that is requiring that municipalities not distinguish that way.
okay, thanks for that correction. Go ahead.
And I think within the city, we do allow manufactured
Yes. and
homes that are
modulars.
manufactured, at a factory and brought here and assembled. But this has to do with a mobile, home. This has to do with a rezoning. And that's really what we're looking at.
But the court says you must have, I'm not good at quoting it, but it has to be a by right zoning. Not just allowing that, but you have to have it in a zoning district.
All right. Item C says, if the zoning amendment is compatible with existing land uses in the vicinity of the subject site or throughout the zoning districts affected by the proposed amendment. So compatible with existing land uses in the vicinity.
I'm going to go with the same logic I used before. This is a single-family or dwelling unit proposed, and that is the,
So you would say it was, it
that's
is
compatible.
consistent?
Yeah.
Okay, or compatible with existing land uses.
And again, I would also concur with that. This would be single-family and consistent with single-family housing within the area on this particular item.
Other comments? Mike, anything to offer?
I would agree with that.
Janice or Larry, anything?
This is where staff provided us with a definition to look closely at the definition of dwelling unit and dwelling single family.
Yep, yep. Item D says if existing or planned public infrastructure, including streets, sanitary sewers, stormwater, water mains, wells, sidewalks, street lighting, et cetera, are capable of accommodating potential changes in land use from the proposed zoning amendment.
Yeah, I don't think we have any issues here. In fact, even DPW came in and spoke about electrical and water and sewer capacity within the city, and with what we have, I mean, with many new homes that are going up down the street, and we haven't heard any of those issues, so I think we've got the infrastructure to handle that. So I think that portion is actually met.
And the other thing it supports that is this had a fairly good-sized facility on it, supporting a number of people, and that infrastructure is still there.
Right, right. The nursing home, I think, had perhaps as many as 100 residents at one time or another. And Clark is right. I think city council meeting on Monday, most recent, had a presentation from Dana Bird and Shawsa about capacities in a general sense, both water and electric and so on. And I would concur that the infrastructure is there to accommodate these changes. Janice or Larry, anything else? Mike?
Just to add to that, that when we get to the point of site plan review, there will be a very detailed analysis by the city engineer staff.
Yes, I agree with that. The site plan review will probably demonstrate what you have said about it being, okay.
So we've got some consensus there, it seems. And item E says if the proposed amendment is consistent with the intent and purpose of this ordinance and whether the proposed amendment would protect the health, safety, and welfare of the city.
I struggled with this one at first. Do I think that this protects the health, welfare, and safety of individuals within the city as a project in itself? And I'm going to say, yes, it does. When I look at the overall city and decision-making processes, and as a body of planners and looking at our zoning ordinances and where we want to develop and go forward, this is a rezoning, and that rezoning to a manufactured housing community then takes control away from the city in many decision-making processes with the development. Therefore, I do not think that this protects the health and welfare of the city. So I'm going to say no. I don't think that is actually met. I don't think this helps the city in its decision-making processes and the Planning Commission and the City Council in moving the city forward. So no.
All right. Other thoughts, comments?
I would agree with what Commissioner Gruber said, but to add to that, the ending says, of the city. Everything I've heard so far certainly advances the interests of individuals or certain organizations, but there has been nothing said in support of this that provides some sense of how it's going to benefit the community. So I think we need to think about that as well.
Well said, yep. Other thoughts, comments?
Well, I think what Commissioner Campbell shared with us earlier, and at least as I read the words, is consistent with the intent and purpose of this ordinance. And we go back to the whole subject of is rezoning required. To me, rezoning is not required. They have the tools available to do this within the existing zoning. And so I don't know 100% for sure that's what the intent of that sentence is, but that's how I read it. And so I think the answer is no.
Okay. George, do you have anything to add?
So I'm just going off the last part of the staff report that says that basically this topic here suggests a potentially reduced impact relative to other land uses that could be approved without specialized review process. So I'm a yes on this one.
Could you elaborate, please, George? I'm sorry, I didn't understand the nuance there.
So the other potential land uses that could be used for this site are a lot more potentially impactful to the health, safety, and welfare of the city than this proposed use. That's the way I read the staff report. So that's why I'm saying it's yes.
Brad, did you want to comment on that? Because I think that's part of what you authored, and you were
Correct.
envisioning other uses other than what's proposed that would be available by right under an MHC.
Correct. Well, and as you recall, right now, the property is zoned for multifamily residential. Someone, in theory, could propose to construct a multifamily residential project on that property. It is a by right use because it's in the multifamily residential district, and at nearly 8 acres, it could be rather dense.
Yeah, and that would be a more intense, have a more, your wording says, suggest a potentially reduced impact. Some of those other possible developments would have an increased impact, I think was your intention. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, thanks. Comments?
Sorry, no, I think there's some confusion on that. So what Brad's point is that the types of uses that are allowed under the current zoning, RM1, potentially could be more intense than what would be allowed as a manufactured housing community. So a manufactured housing community could be less intense than some of the uses that are currently allowed.
And that's how I understood what's in the agenda packet. So, other comments, questions? We have a possible suggested resolution in the packet. We've had some good discussion. We've heard lots of comment. Is there a motion to either modify that resolution or adopt the resolution as written or as modified?
I tell you what, I could start out as adopting a resolution, and then if we wanted to work on it, we could start from that. And what number would we be assigning this one? 14, thank you very much. I would make a motion to adopt resolution number 26-14, a resolution recommending denial of an amendment of the zoning map for the city of South Haven by conditionally rezoning the properties commonly known as 120 Baseline Road and 206 Webster Avenue from RM1 multifamily residential and R1B single-family residential, respectively, to MHC manufactured housing community.
All right, and a minor correction there, I think you said 206, you meant to say 201 Webster Avenue.
201 Webster.
Just for the record. And would you suggest any modification to the,
Not at this time.
okay,
Second. Support.
support. All right, then it's moved and supported to adopt Resolution 2026-14 to recommend to City Council, obviously, recommend denial of the amendment of the zoning map as requested. Any further discussion of that motion?
Are there differences between the motion and what's in the package on page 32?
No, because I'm adopting that entire resolution.
Okay, thank you.
And part of that actually has in there D, although the existing planned infrastructure, including streets, are likely capable of accommodating, that factor does not outweigh the other four factors, meaning I don't have a problem with what I agreed to was okay.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to point out there's a typo in 2A. The second consistent in the last line should read inconsistent.
If someone wants to make a
Dwelling
motion to
unit
that.
types are inconsistent with single-family residential development. I see your point, and I think that would be correct. Everybody with it? So that's on the agenda packet, page 33, item 2A, the last, well, it's all one sentence, but it says, but the conditional rezoning offer does not commit to develop only in a manufactured housing community on the site. It would allow for density and dwelling unit types that are, as it's written, that are consistent and should say are inconsistent with single-family residential development.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question for staff and the attorney. Can you explain your thinking in having drafted this in advance for us, putting it into the packet, and how consistent it is with how we have discussed the points tonight? So that we have some guidance as to what we may need to amend.
Kelly or Nathan, you want to speak to that?
Sure. I would say, as I mentioned at the beginning, I think part of the reason for developing the resolution in this way was that the conditional offer did not commit the development to only a manufactured housing community as opposed to other uses on the site. And we were hearing in some of the other meetings concerns about density and concerns about compatibility with neighborhood character and single-family housing types. And so that really went into the thinking behind this resolution, there was concerns with density that weren't quite addressed by the conditional rezoning offer. Certainly, if you all feel differently, you are welcome to modify this resolution in any way that you see fit. You are the decision makers.
And my goal was to allow that by getting at least this onto the table.
Yes.
And I guess to the extent that that question was also posed to me, Ms. Getman-Dissett was responsible for the planning findings. My role was mainly contained to the legal aspect of it, and whether or not you believe that it's consistent with your discussion tonight is a question for you. Kelly and I can't answer that. Like she said, to the extent that you believe it is inconsistent with your discussion tonight, the suggestion would be to amend the resolution to align the findings with what you believe your findings should be.
So my question then to you is it appropriate to amend, given that we had discussion about the fact that the plan is not consistent with the genuine need for missing middle and workforce housing, is that an appropriate amendment to put into A in addition to what's there, or is that not, because it applies specifically to what we've been told is going to be done there.
I didn't quite follow the last portion of the question, but yes, if you believe that that finding would be consistent with why it is not consistent with the master plan, then you could amend the resolution to include that finding as a either replacement for what's in A or in addition to what is in A.
Mr. Chairman, then I would like to add a sentence at the end of sub A, after the word development period, that says additionally, the plans for this proposed rezoning or proposed zoning amendment is not consistent with the major priority of our master plan to address the need for missing middle and workforce housing options.
Okay, so there's a motion to amend the resolution. Is there support?
I'll support that.
All right, moved and supported to amend item 2A. Any further discussion there? George, go ahead.
Go ahead, George.
So my only concern with that is anytime we have a development coming before us that for some reason the developer doesn't want to support missing middle workforce housing, we can say it doesn't meet the master plan. And when I looked at the master plan, I looked at what the master plan specifically said regarding this property. That is the future land use map and the text that was added associated with this property. And I didn't see anything in there that talked about missing middle. So that's why I have a problem with that, adding that. I'm all for getting more missing middle workforce housing in the city, but that's not the way I read this master plan regarding this piece of property.
And I agree with that. I think the intent of the text that went into the master plan was to speak to that, but it wasn't explicit. It simply says attractive for single-family development. It says nothing about workforce or missing middle housing, so.
And I concur there. Although I believe in that amendment, I'm not sure if I want to tie every developed piece of property to that.
If I may, I understand it shouldn't be a sole go, no-go gate, but it's a consideration. And it's a consideration that we've stated elsewhere in the master plan, and we shouldn't have to put it at every detailed location throughout the text. So I agree completely. It's not the sole basis for denying this, but I do think it's a consideration. And I think in this case, just my opinion, is there's a number of considerations that come into play. But the fact that that's not explicitly mentioned in that portion of the master plan, it is in other places in the master plan.
I'm just saying, this resolution is telling City Council why we are not approving this rezoning effort. So I don't see that as just discussing our considerations. We're telling City Council, hey, it doesn't include missing middle, so we are denying it.
And I guess what I'm trying to say is I think there are multiple reasons. I think they have the opportunity to develop this property as they want to without rezoning. I don't know if we've stated that here. I think we should. I thought Mike did a great job laying that out earlier. And actually, to me, that's the primary reason for denying this. That's just my personal opinion.
So I guess I still don't understand why we would add the missing middle part, workforce housing.
It's not the reason, but it is a reason. It's a consideration. I think every project we look at, we should think about that.
Other comments about the amendment, proposed amendment?
Was it supported? Who supported
It
it?
was. Paul supported it.
Okay, thank you.
Samantha, would you read the roll on the amended motion? or the amendment to the motion?
Campbell,
Yes.
Fitton,
Yes.
Gruber,
No.
Heinig,
No.
Sleeper,
No.
Barney,
No.
Sherman.
No.
Motion fails.
All right, but even though that a motion failed, the statement in A could stand within the motion to accept this resolution.
And hopefully the discussion can be brought forward with whatever recommendation or denial that goes forward.
So is there other language in the draft resolution that's been the subject of a motion and supported, other language in item B? Do we need to modify that language?
Mr. Chair, before you move on from A, I don't think we had a clear correction to the typo. I would suggest either somebody make a motion to amend, or Mr. Gruber
thank you.
could
Yes.
amend
yes.
his motion to make that correction.
Yes. So Kelly had pointed out the typo in 2A, the last line of that, not last sentence, but last line says, are consistent with single-family residential development, and should read, are inconsistent with single. So we would need an amendment or a motion to amend the resolution to say inconsistent, not consistent.
I move we change the word consistent to inconsistent
Support.
on line 5 of 2A.
All right, moved and supported. Any discussion there? Samantha, would you read that roll, please?
Fitton,
Yes.
Gruber,
Yes.
Heinig,
Yes.
Sleeper,
Yes.
Barney,
Yes.
Campbell,
Yes.
Sherman.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Any language modification to item B? Hearing none, is there any modification we need to the language in item C? Hearing none, any modification of language in item D? Hearing none, item E. Do we need to modify that language? All right, then. We're back to the original motion to accept Resolution 2026-14 to deny the requested amendment. Samantha, would you read the roll for that, please?
Gruber,
Yes.
Heinig,
No.
Sleeper,
No.
Barney,
Yes.
Campbell,
Yes.
Fitton,
Yes.
Sherman.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you all. Thank you all very much. We can move on, I believe, to item 6 on the agenda, which is a special land use application for 225 North Shore Drive. And as I mentioned earlier, because my property is within the notice area there, I am conflicted here, and Commissioner Heinig will conduct the discussion and action on this item.
And welcome back, Hosley.
Kelly, would you brief us on this? It's already been introduced very well by our chairman.
Thank you. This is an application from David and Melissa Dimmock for a special land use for one of the condominiums at 225 North Shore. Do we need to give the room a minute to clear?
Yeah, excuse me, Kelly, if you would, please take your conversations to the hallway so that we can proceed with other items on our agenda. Thank you very much.
And should we close the door if they're going to be talking?
That would be a good idea, too. Thanks, Brad. Thanks, Brad. Thanks, Brad. Kelly, would you proceed then?
Sure, okay, thank you. Okay, so this is a special land use application for a short-term rental for one of the condominiums at 225 North Shore. This is a one-bedroom unit with parking in a dedicated off-street parking lot. The location is zoned RM1, and it is within the short-term rental overlay district, so it is eligible for a special land use permit, which will allow the property owners to seek licensing for the short-term rental. There is a resolution for your consideration in the packet. Should you choose to adopt the resolution, it would be number 15, 2026, number 15. We do need to hold a public hearing on this item as well. Excuse me.
Okay, thank you. Is there a representative in the audience that would like to speak? You don't have to, no.
We appreciate that they are at least come.
Okay.
I make a motion to open
Questions
the
of
public
staff?
hearing.
Support.
Okay, motion to open the public hearing is made and supported. All in favor say yes.
Yes.
Opposed, no. Public hearing is open. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak on this? I will entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Move to close the public hearing.
Support.
Motion made and seconded to close the public hearing. All in favor say yes.
Yes.
Opposed, no. Public hearing is closed. Discussion items or a motion.
Chairman,
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I move to approve resolution number 2026-15, a resolution approving a special land use application for short-term rental use for the dwelling unit at 225 North Shore Drive, number 1.
Support.
Motion made and seconded to approve. Discussion. May we have a roll call vote?
Bosley?
Yes.
Sleeper?
Yes.
Barney?
Yes.
Campbell?
Yes.
Fenton?
Yes.
Gruber?
Yes.
Heineck?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Motion carried. I don't think I can handle another one, Mr. Chairman. Take over.
Thank you very much, Larry. We can move on to agenda item number 7, which is a request for a special land use for the property at 424 Quaker Street, number 1. We do have a public hearing associated here. Kelly, you want to give us any background on that, please?
Sure, thank you. This is a request from Alan Bachaska. This is a 2-bedroom upper-level dwelling unit in the Central Business District. This unit was previously registered as a short-term rental, but the registration lapsed, and so the owners are now applying for a special land use permit. You might recall that commercial uses in the central business are not required to provide parking, so no parking is required. However, there is one parking space available for this unit. This is also in the short-term rental overlay district, so it's eligible for the special land use permit, which allows the owners to seek licensing. Should you choose, the resolution number would be 2026-16.
Thank you very much.
I make a motion to open the public hearing.
Support.
Thank you very much. All in favor of opening the public hearing, say yes.
Yes.
Opposed, no. The public hearing is open. Is there anyone representing the ownership here or not? Would you like to speak, or if not, that's okay?
The podium.
You have to come to the podium.
Yeah, if you'd like to speak, please come forward. Yeah, and you don't have to. We have plenty of detail in the packet. All right, then, is there a motion to close the public hearing?
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Support.
Moved and supported to close the public hearing. All in favor, say yes.
Yes.
The public hearing is closed.
Mr. Chairman, I moved to adopt resolution number 2026-16, a resolution approving a special land use application for short-term rental use for the dwelling unit at 424 Quaker Street, number 1.
Support.
Moved and supported to approve the special land use application, resolution 2026-16. Are we up to 16? Thank you.
Yep.
Moved and supported. Any discussion? Roll call, please. Samantha.
Sleeper,
Yes.
Barney,
Yes.
Campbell,
Yes.
Vinton,
Yes.
Gruber,
Yes.
Heinig,
Yes.
Hasley,
Yes.
Sherman.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you all. Agenda item number 8, citizens in the audience may address the planning commission regarding items not on the agenda. Items not on the agenda. Anyone like to speak? Thank you. We have no unfinished business. We have no new business. Kelly, do you want to give us a look into your crystal ball? What lies ahead?
Our next regular meeting will be June 4th at 7, but prior to that, we've asked Dana Bird to come at 6 o'clock for a workshop to give us a presentation similar to the one he gave to the Committee of the Whole on Monday night, so to talk about utilities and capacity. So that will be at 6. The regular meeting will follow on June 4th. So mark your calendars for that. And then June 18 at 6 o'clock, we are looking forward to a special joint meeting with the City Council. And I think the agenda is to be determined for that, but I think we'll all look forward to that as well. And I don't want to steal her thunder, but I believe this to be Janice Varney's last meeting, and we're so grateful, Janice, for you and for your service, and I just want to say thank you. Thank you very much.
And I was going to speak to that as well, and I believe, I did a little research on you, Janice, and I was already impressed, but it's really pretty amazing. I think this is the completion of your second term, 6 years on Planning Commission. Do I have that right?
Part of another, I believe, but yeah.
Okay, but yeah, 6 of the best years of your life, I think, right? Isn't that what you said? But so much more. Janice is really an amazing woman and has served this community in many, many ways. In case you don't know, and for the record, it deserves to be said, Dean of Student Services at one time at Lake Michigan College, and then the executive dean at Lake Michigan College, and very involved in the establishment of the South Haven branch campus of Lake Michigan College, and received from Lake Michigan College the Distinguished Service Award for her work. She was also president for 6 years, I believe, of the South Haven Chamber, and was recognized there with a Lifetime Achievement Award from the Chamber, I believe. If this sounds like an obituary, I don't mean it to sound that way. It's just a recognition for really a wonderful person. She is still involved with the South Haven Speakers Series, and if you don't participate and attend those, you are really missing some wonderful opportunities. She's active with the South Haven Community Foundation still. Saugatuck Center for the Arts, I believe.
I was, no longer.
No
but I
longer?
was.
Okay, but that's another wonderful effort. I was just there for a cover band for the Eagles. That was wonderful just a week ago. Great place, Saugatuck Center. And still involved with the Land Conservancy?
Yes, peripherally. I used to be on the board and president of the board, but I termed out.
So I just have to, with all seriousness, you have served this community well. You served this board very, very well. As Kelly said, we'll miss your presence here. You've added a lot of value, but I'm just going to salute all that you've done. That's not an obituary. All right, commissioner comments. I don't know where I started last time. Paul, would you like to lead us off? Anything to offer in closing?
All set, thank you.
All righty. George?
I'm just going to pile on. Thank you, Janice, for the many years you spent serving the community.
Clark?
And I too will miss Janice. Her thought, the amount of effort, thought, genuine caring and heart of not only the people who come in front of us and petition, but also for the city that she calls home. You will be greatly missed. And I was really taken back when I knew you weren't going to be coming back. And with all that, crying that goes along that, I'm also extremely happy to see George Sleeper back here. And I'm so happy that he's right next to me. And so we'll need to figure out how to maybe play cards at the slow period. So welcome back, George. And you will be missed. Yeah, my deal.
Thank you, thank you. Mike, how about you? Anything to add?
Just thank you, Janice, as well as Brad, Nathan, Kelly, and Samantha for putting the packet together so well.
Mary, anything?
I want to echo everyone's compliments of Janice, and I can attest by sitting next to her how well prepared and all the notes she takes. So thank you, but at least I get to continue to see you. Thank you, staff, for the package, and also for the announcements for the upcoming meeting. And I'm just going to reiterate that I know special land use for short-term rentals really needs to be one of the discussion topics. I've heard that often, and I look forward to another discussion with Dana for DPW. I've got some questions I've sent in ahead of time to prep them. After seeing those slides, they were very, very helpful. I was very glad to see different slides than what was in December. I think it really went to the point that we've been discussing.
Thank you. Janice?
Well, I guess I learned a couple of things working on the Planning Commission. One, planning is never boring, and also that the agendas are never short. But I have to say, it's such a pleasure to work with such caring individuals about our community. We come here from diverse walks of life. We have these conversations. We delve deep into what the issues are. We listen intently to our residents. We follow the guidelines and the restraints that we have in front of us, or the ordinances, etc. And we try to walk that ground to do what we think is best at the moment. And I guess that's all we can do, is what we think is best with the moment, but also look ahead to the future. So I'm really happy to see that you're going to be meeting with City Council. And I also think talking about how we can best change this workload so it's not as cumbersome in some of the issues that are coming forward. But I also want to recognize that you all have been really helpful to me, extraordinarily helpful. I mean, each one of you contributes so much. And one of the things, you make a community, the residents, staff, how they guide us through this whole complicated, sometimes complicated, many times, most of the time complicated system, really deserves a lot of kudos. And one thing that I've learned working in this community is that we are a community and we come together. We do the best we can for each other, but we also consider the whole. And it was probably about 10 years ago when my son's races, I was out of town watching, and I read something on a board in front of me, and it says something like, look around you and you'll see what this community values. And I think that's what you do. You make this community what it is, and people coming here, people living here, look around them, and they see what we value as a whole. And I really give you all so many kudos, and thank you for your hard work. This is not an easy job. It's hard work, and people here don't come with their agendas. They come with good thinking and good perspectives. I admire that in each of you. Thank you again.
Larry, anything?
Yeah, thank you. May I have your notebook? Pretty complicated project tonight that we had to deal with, and I think we did well. We all got involved, and now we leave here with in one mind. This was our decision. Thank you all, staff, audience.
I'm going to take a minute and reflect on our meeting in April, because at the end of the meeting, there were a number of comments made. Mike, you made some very thoughtful comments, I believe. Tim did as well. Tim's not here. Paul as well. And I thought there was a thread to all of them. For example, Tim spoke about the Army Corps of Engineers and how they have projected that probably within 10 years or less, we could see lake levels, water levels that were as high or higher than what was seen in 1986, which is not in my memory, but in the memory of many here, was just catastrophic. And Tim's point was, what should we be doing? What should we be doing today for that high water event, if it happens within the next year? What should we be doing with the drawbridge? What should we be doing with dunes and on and on? Let's be more forward-thinking and proactive and less reactive. Mike, those were some of your points. You spoke to the choice between doing the expedient thing and I'll say the right thing. And you suggested that at times we've chosen to do the expedient thing when we ought to be doing the right thing, and they're not always the same. Paul, you said some of the same things. You talked about chasing versus reacting to issues and short-term actions, and you suggested we should be spending less time on administrative tasks and more on prioritizing objectives. So the thread I saw or heard in all of those was that we as a group, and this would apply, I think, to City Council as well, we need to be more forward-thinking, more proactive, and not reactive. And that's why I think this joint meeting, I hope, will be very, very productive. You know, Paul spoke about objectives. City Council has objectives, and they spend a pretty fair amount of time discussing those. We ought to be involved in that conversation, I think. So I really thought that the comments at the end of last month's meeting were important enough and thoughtful enough. We need to make sure that we carry those forward. You know, Tim, for example, wondered about should we allow B&Bs, bed and breakfasts, or inns in residential districts? Or is that a commercial use? You know, because I've been told there was a possible buyer for the property on Monroe, the former convent, who, and this is all speculative, might be interested in buying that and turning it into an inn. Would that even get to first base? I don't know. But all of those thoughts I summarized by saying they were a call to proactive thinking by all of us here, City Council, collectively, and I thought they're just worth re-emphasizing. Aside from that, as always, Kelly and Samantha, none of this could happen without your work, so thanks so much. Nathan always keeps us on the straight and narrow. I appreciate that. Brad, thanks for your input. And most importantly, thanks to everybody that comes to these meetings and offers their opinion. And like I said, I know, and I believe I can speak for everybody, we value and respect that input and don't want you to ever stop. So, hearing nothing else, I'll declare us adjourned.